Hello traders, welcome to the recap for Monday the 14th. And I've been away from trading for the last few weeks with the holidays and taking a little bit of an extended break, but now starting to get back into things again. And markets are still a little bit slow, but they should start picking up in the next week or two here. Today I only had 4 trades, a couple wins, a couple losses for 19 pips. So not a huge day, but definitely a nice positive day to start the week. And things started off here with a short that I took around the mid-Frankfurt hour. Actually, a little bit later than that. I took it about 15 minutes before the London Open. And it was one where I was hoping to see a little bit of a push down before London Open to potentially take my pips off the table. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And because we had a fairly nice, a fairly slow, but it was slow and steady move down, I was hoping for London Open to potentially continue that move. So instead of getting out or tightening up my stop, taking a small loss, I did hold into a little bit of drawdown, and that eventually did push down for me at London Open. Now, because I had held this trade already for a fairly long amount of time, I did decide to take my 17 pips off the table the first time we started to bottom out. Originally, my target was in the 33.50 area, which you see it did eventually make, but I didn't want to hold for quite that long. I wanted to make sure I got some of those pips, just in case with the volume that was coming into the market, we did reverse. We did come up a little bit and then formed another trend continuation here. I thought that this would at least push to the 33.50 area, giving me some room to manage my stop, move to break even, potentially take a small loss if it didn't break through. Unfortunately, I was wrong and it reversed on me right away, so I did take a full loss on that for 6 pips. Now from there, we didn't have any trades in this bottoming area here into 33.50. But I did manage to get one after a little bit of consolidation where it was holding in this very tight pattern, and these can be great in terms of breakout opportunities where you can see a lot of momentum coming out of them when things are so tight like this for a while. Now the trouble with these is that they can be difficult to time, and you can see here that I turned down the first opportunity because the markets were very flat, but as things continued to tighten up, I took the next opportunity and it almost stopped me out as it came back. And so that's kind of the risk you take. This isn't an extremely high percentage trade to take these consolidations, but they do often work, and when they work, they're usually very good risk reward. So I went through a little bit of drawdown here, but it did eventually work out for me. And in terms of why I took this to the upside rather than the downside, and for a breakout opportunity, is because we had bottomed down into this 33.50 and had a fairly good move off of it. And when we failed to push down again, even though the market was flat, the percentages were to the upside at that point. So that's why I took the upside breakout. And worked out quite well, but it was a trade where this is the one where I definitely should have held a little bit longer. Could have had, instead of 19 pips today, could have had maybe 30 pips or so if I would have held on to this. But this move here took about a half an hour to work out. And so at that point, I often, if the market isn't moving very quickly, I will take my pips off the table. And we did have some topping patterns in here, something that I teach in my course in terms of the way that I manage my trades, certain management techniques that I use. So I did take my pips off the table there. Considering the strength of this move in the overall context of the market, I probably should have held this a little bit longer, gotten out somewhere up in here. But as it was, took those 15 pips off the table, and it's still a pretty good trade in terms of risk reward. So I don't mind taking those pips there. From there, we did have a pretty good move down. I was hoping to catch something in here, but unfortunately I didn't have any entry opportunities. And then in here, this is an area where I don't usually trade, especially if I have some trades already in the morning. This is usually a pretty dead zone. But it turned out that there was a pretty good move late in this London lunch here that you could have potentially made some all right pips on into the news. But this was not something where I was actually trading myself. I was taking a little bit of a break, so I did not get that one. And then we had a pretty good move up from the New York morning news that came out. And from there, the next opportunity I took a short in here. The initial move was pretty good with the news, and then we formed a lower high, a lower low, and it looked to me like we might see a good opportunity for some downside down into this prior lows when we were holding at the 33.50 level. So I did take a short there. I gave it a little bit of time. I had a potential opportunity to get out with a little bit less risk. but I didn't take it, and unfortunately I did take a full loss on this one, 7 pip loss. And from there, because the markets were quite tight, quite slow, and I'm usually done pretty early in the New York morning anyways, after the New York Stock Exchange opens, I just I ended my day. So there was, some opportunities later on if you kept going, but I don't usually go that much later in New York, and if I do, I'm usually trading other markets like the ES. So that's everything for today. Like I said, 19 pips, 2 wins, 2 losses. Hopefully you guys found this useful. All right, thanks. Bye.